calling all nerds. Hey, get over here. He's calling all nights. Oh, jeez. Here come the nerds. It's time to talk to the interested and interesting.
I was wondering when the nerd would come.
And here's your host, Mike Thayer. Oi. Hello. It is time to talk to the interested and the interesting. I'm your host, Mike Thayer. It's calling all nerds. Alright, episode number 11 coming at you. This is one I cannot wait for people to listen to. I talked to Kristie Wolfe. She is like creative designer extraordinaire. Has been courted by many a production company to get a show onto TV because of all the cool tiny houses she builds and just crazy projects she's involved in. The thing that first attracted me to the world of Kristie Wolfe was a hobbit hole that she built, like a legit awesome hobbit hole in the rolling green hills in Washington. It looks incredible from the pictures I've seen and the videos I've watched. Looks exactly like what you'd see in Hobbiton in New Zealand. Trust me, because I've been there. So I knew I needed to talk to her because as many of you know that have been listening to this podcast, I have this dream of mine to build my own hobbit hole. And I've seen some companies that kind of do some pre-built stuff, and I've seen a couple people around the nation that have done it, but nobody has done it justice like Kristie has. So we launched into all sorts of awesome topics, and it was crazy. It was one of the few times I've had a conversation with basically a complete stranger and had them repeat back to me all of these ideas that I had been spinning around my head and I've been telling other people. She echoed a bunch of this stuff, and often in more eloquent ways than I could. So about creativity and about not necessarily worrying about the resale value of your house, just doing cool things and awesome things. Anyway, I'll let the conversation stand for itself. A couple of things before we get to that conversation. So I'm still trying to develop like a pre-conversation format, so I'm throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall, seeing if it sticks. One of the things I've talked about in the last few episodes is things that grind my gears, and I will continue that. So this week on things that bug me, and again, it's not necessarily things that are topical. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I've been spending a lot of time on social media, a lot of time on Facebook, promoting my book and the like, as it came out as I'm recording this today, December 10th. When this goes live, it'll be December 12th. Anyway, it's been a crazy day. Spent a lot of time online. But I see my Facebook feed, and there's something that grinds my gears so bad. People have to understand what's going on here. It's all the kind of clickbaity share memes or posts when people say things like, I bet you won't share this, or I don't think anyone will share this, and then someone, you don't think? Well, I'll show you. I'll be one of the 7 million people that shared the stupid thing on some slightly unpopular political opinion, or like only 3% of people will get this right. Guys, they did not do a study. Some guy just wrote that. So you would say, only 3%, well, I can do better than that. And then when you get the answer, you think you're cool and you're part of the 3%, and so you post it. Guys, why do you keep doing this? Okay? It's a clickbaity thing. Only 1% of people will share this. No, apparently a lot more, because I see 1 trillion people sharing stupid stuff like that. Like, if that stuff comes across my feed, that's like a guarantee unfollow. I just cannot tolerate people who fall for the clickbaity stuff. I can't do it. Stop doing it. All right, that's the thing that grinds my gears. Things on the other side of the fence, things that inspire me, things that have been occupying my thoughts. The big news coming out this week, as everyone knows, is the trailer for Avengers Endgame, Avengers 4. My relationship with movie trailers. I love movie trailers. I love their music. I listen to it, the companies that make the music, ad nauseum as I write. I love awesome movies boiled down into movie trailers. Get the chills going, almost bring a tear to my eye. I love movie trailers. But I have a love-hate relationship with movie trailers because I realized probably half a decade ago that my enjoyment of the movie was increased fourfold. It's a very scientific number. Fourfold if I don't watch the trailer. So I found this when I watched the second Avengers. I avoided all trailers, all commercials, which is not too hard because I don't watch too much TV anymore. But I avoided all this stuff. When I would go to a movie and a trailer would come on, I literally would close my eyes and plug my ears. I don't want to see all the cool stuff. If I know I'm going to watch the movie and I don't need to be pulled in at all, I will avoid all trailers, avoid all spoilers, because I want to be enjoying the movie. I want to see all the cool stuff when I'm in the movie theater. I don't want to get to the movie theater and see all the stuff I've seen on commercials. So I remember in Age of Ultron, there's like a scene at the very beginning when Captain America throws like a motorbike over his shoulders and smashes a bunch of bad guys. And I was like whooping and hollering and clapping my hands, and like no one even reacted. And then I went back and saw the trailer, and it's all over the trailers. So I want the pure raw emotion. So Avengers is difficult because I've never been more excited for a movie in my entire life than Avengers 4. So I watched the teaser trailer because I know the teaser trailers don't really give away a bunch. And I am incredibly intrigued to see how they pull this all together. I have theories of my own, how they're going to pull it together with Ant-Man and everybody. Yeah, I cannot wait to see. So I saw the teaser trailer. Very, very good. Got the emotions going, got the curiosity peaked, and now it's in lockdown mode. Full on Avengers 4 lockdown. So no more, like, any trailers that come out. Sorry, a little bit of a cold. Any trailers that come out after that, I will avoid them. Any conversations that come up, I will avoid those as well. So if you love them, leave them, sort of. If you love the Avengers 4, then you will leave it alone until you see it. So, yeah, but I am super pumped. I've spoken about this before in different podcasts. I'm very nervous about Captain Marvel, only because I know she's going to be the most powerful person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I have no problem with her being the most powerful person in the cinematic universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, after Avengers 4, not before. Because if she comes swooping in and kind of saves the day, we don't know who she is. We'll have one movie under our belt for like a month. She doesn't deserve to come in and save the day, to be honest. And I don't care what she was doing the last 20 years. We haven't seen her in a bunch of movies. We haven't seen her level up. Thor deserves to be the strongest Avenger. He has lost everything. He's lost his home. He has lost his family. He has lost his brother, his mother, his father, his hammer, his eye. He deserves to level up. He deserves to be the awesome, super axe wielding, Stormbreaker wielding, just end all be all awesome Avenger. Because everything has been sacrificed. So I will let Captain Marvel have the next generation of Marvel movies. I kind of want to see this ride out with the core group of Avengers that we've spent the last 10 years with. I don't really like the whole newcomer thing. I don't. But I am excited because she's a super cool character, and I'm sure will inspire many of my daughter's Halloween costumes to come. So, but I am nervous. I have a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina with Captain Marvel. Okay, I got that out of my system. Something crazy weird happened. So I posted about this on Facebook, but in case you don't follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you should, but in case you don't. So I have this Kindle giveaway. So I'm doing this giveaway in conjunction with the release of my second book, The Uncharted Lands, which is out now, which is super awesome. But I'm doing this giveaway. So I have a Kindle and I have like a Techno Wizard. That's the series, my book series. Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard. It has this skin on it, this cool sort of skin I bought and got custom made. And then it's going to have my first two books on this Kindle. So people have been signing up for a chance to be entered in and win this free Kindle before Christmas. So exported the names in the list, hit a random number generator, picked one person out last night, and I was just about to email her, and I said, you know what, I'll wait for the morning and kind of do it all in conjunction with all the emails I'm pushing out about the release of my second book. So I sent all these emails out, and there's probably like 400 emails I sent out. One person decides to unsubscribe out of the 400. And guess who that one person was? It was the one person I had chosen through a random number generator to win the Kindle. What are the flippin' odds? I mean, you can calculate the odds, but that's just insane. It just goes to show you, I'm not giving her the Kindle. She unsubscribed, for heaven's sakes. So I selected somebody else, sent him an email. Craziness. Little did she know that she'd won. All right. So other than that, I've been talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, but book 2 is officially out. People are buying it. People seem to be enjoying it. I can't wait to see the reviews kind of start rolling in. Still some pretty big headaches with my publisher and printer from a hardback perspective, but everything else seems to be going smoothly. I'm holding my breath until people start receiving their books and say they look great and everything. But Yeah, it's in some ways it's like a big thing. In other ways, it's kind of anticlimactic because I've seen the finished product and it's one of those things that doesn't get enjoyed immediately. People got to buy it. It's got to get delivered. People got to read it. They're doing it at different times. They're not all doing it together like a movie. So you kind of get feedback trickling in. So, I blast as many people as I can without being annoying the announcement that the book's coming out, but then you kind of have to wait for the feedback. So, and then I got to kind of move on to my next project. So, which is finishing Danny Doubleday and then outlining book 3, which I'll need to do before the end of the year. So that's what's going on with me. All right. So, conversation with Kristie Wolfe was awesome. Hopefully you enjoy it. She's got a bunch of really good kind of one-liners, lessons for life. Pretty inspirational person when it comes to creativity and kind of just going for it and inspiring other people with the cool things that's in her brain and that she's capable of creating with her hands. So, without further ado, Miss Kristie Wolfe. This week I am joined by Kristie Wolfe. Now, we have never met, we have never spoken, and this is sort of how I came upon Kristie. So it is no secret to anyone that knows me that I have a dream of one day building my own hobbit house, my own hobbit hole. So I'm just going to do a quick pan just for Kristie and anyone else who's enjoying the video feed. If you don't already know, is just a tad bit of a Lord of the Rings fan. Okay, this is my home office. This is where I write. In fact, here's a picture of Hobbiton. No, that's not a Hobbiton one. There's a picture of Hobbiton I took. So we used to live in Australia, so we went to New Zealand a couple of times. I now can't get the camera to look the direction I want to. But we went to New Zealand a couple of times. I gathered rocks from like the film location of Mount Doom and Mordor. I'm a pretty big nerd, all right? So we've established that. My podcast is called Calling All Nerds. So I have done actually a bit of research into trying to build my own hobbit hole. So we have a vacant lot right next to my house. I've talked to one of my neighbors about turning it into a neighborhood hobbiton. Don't know if that'll ever work. But so I've like scoured the countryside for like, has anyone actually done this? And there's a company out of Maine that builds like kind of custom built kits they can ship to people. I've talked to them. I got a custom quote. So I'm scrolling through Facebook one day and I see a picture of a hobbit hole. And it's not uncommon to pop up on my Facebook feed. And I was like, man, that's a good looking hobbit hole from Hobbiton. And I was like, wait a second. No. And then there's a picture of you standing in front of it, some ad from Zillow. And I was like, she built that? And it is the most legit hobbit hole I have ever seen in my entire life. And then I start going down this Kristie Wolfe like social media rabbit hole. I'm like, she has like some treehouse in Hawaii and some like used to be some fire lookout station in the middle of. I'm like, who is this person? And so that's this podcast is about talking to the interesting and interested, and you look like a very interesting person. So I just wanted to get like, first off, how on earth did you do all this stuff? The only description I could find of you is a designer and dressmaker. Somehow I think that falls just a tad short of what you've been able to produce. So who are you?
I think I'm a builder, but it is a hard thing to explain on what I do without having to.
This is your chance.
Explain.
You have center stage. Explain away.
So
Tell the world who in the heck is Kristie Wolfe.
I'm a builder, but I like to build experiences. So it's not just like a lot of people think I decorate, which I do, but I also do the plumbing and electrical and the building and the whole bit.
Right.
And most of my properties are off, or all of them actually right now are all off grid, so they're solar powered, and then get their water by various terms. So there's a lot of tricky stuff in that. But yeah, that's what I do. I build vacation rentals. They're all small. They're all targeted towards couples. So they're not very big, but that's where I found my little sweet spot.
And your Hawaii one, your treehouse in the Hawaiian jungle, is like one of the most requested or favorited or desired properties on all of Airbnb.
Yeah, it's the top 10 in the world, and then it's the most wished for in Hawaii, which this is all surprise to me. News articles just came out. And then the Hobbit Hole is the most wished for in Washington, and then my Lookout I just released late this year, and that's in Idaho. So I'm hoping that it gets the Idaho.
Most Idaho.
shot. Yeah.
I think you got a pretty good shot. I don't know how the Hobbit hole isn't the most wished for on planet Earth. So that's
Well, yeah, I think part of that is that the treehouse has existed for a lot longer.
okay. Yeah.
So it would just in turn get a lot more. But my Hobbit hole is maybe like the most booked out.
Yeah, I was looking. I was
Like,
like, you can't get into that place in under a year.
yeah, most people wait about an average of 400 days to stay, and
Oh my
then
gosh.
we do get cancellations. So if you're like close enough and you can make a last minute thing, Hawaii like never gets cancellations because people have flights. It's
Right.
usually
You're pretty
and
locked
that's
in.
about a 6 month out booking. But the Hobble Hole is just ridiculous. Yeah, people are booking even like the summertime for 2020 is pretty booked.
Because I've been trying to finagle, because we own a property in central Utah, me and my father-in-law, my brother-in-law. It's this big, huge sprawling, but it's great property. So people doing weddings there, big family reunions. And for like 2 years, I've been trying to strong arm my father-in-law and my brother-in-law into building a hobbit hole in some corner of the property. And they're like, build a hobbit hole. I was like, no, it not only does this tick a box for my bucket list, but I was like, it makes financial sense. Trying to tell someone that it makes financial sense to build a hobbit hole, maybe it's just because it's coming from me. Maybe if it like came from a sane person who didn't have this
No.
crazy emotional attachment to Middle Earth, that yeah, they'd listen to me a little bit better. But that's great. Yeah,
Well, I
look,
think
it's just nuts.
anything unique sells, but no, it doesn't matter. I mean, I feel like I'm fairly sane, and no, nobody trusts that I might be onto something. So
It's just so. How
I
did you
plan
start? How did you get the hobbit hole? I mean, because to go to Hawaii to build a hobbit, I mean, you got to go all in on this stuff. So how do you have like
yeah,
how do you are that confident enough to do something quirky? Because I would assume quirkiness could either pay off big, or it could fall flat on its face, and people could laugh at you.
well,
Like, what are you doing, living in the middle of the jungle or building a hobbit hole?
I can't. I know no other way to be. Like
Okay, that's good.
this is just that there's no denying it. But for me, the treehouse was my first attempt at trying to do something as a business. I had built a tiny house maybe like 10 years ago, and there were no TV shows about tiny houses. Nobody knew what the heck I
Ah,
was
you
talking about.
predated the whole tiny house craze. Then you're a visionary when
Everybody
it
thought
comes
I
to.
was insane. Yeah, there was like just a handful of us like blogging about it, and I had built mine, and then I gave a speech on just like living intentionally. That was the um, reason behind it, and I already had a background on construction, so that wasn't like a hurdle that I already had to come up with. So I built it in about a month. It wasn't like these fancy ones with full size tubs and stuff that they have now. It's
Right.
just a little one. And I was just going to live as minimally as possible for a year. But I moved into it. I had rented land on a tree farm, and I loved it. Like, I mean, within weeks. So I do these little year-long tests with myself, like, not eating meat or not eating sugar or all these things. And I don't have very many vices, so I was like already taking away everything. And now I
Right.
might have to try something that's adding something. So,
I'm only gonna have Big Macs for a year. I'm all,
right. Yeah. So, but whereas like not eating sugar, insanely hard, living in a confined space, nothing felt like better. And so I was like, I'm going to do this permanently. And I found a super cheap piece of land. At this time, I'm making like $13 an hour or something. I mean, like
right.
I have no money. So I rented out on a tree farm for a year. And once my lease was up, I purchased land out south of town. I live in Boise,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
moved it there. And so I made it off grid, which was way harder than living tiny. And I had kind of eliminated all my bills. I had car insurance. I drive crappy cars, and a cell phone. And I got a job with the Potato Commission as a spokesperson,
As you do
traveling
in
around.
Boise. Yeah.
Yes, traveling around, and they paid for my cell phone, and then I just canceled the insurance on my car because I wasn't going to be driving. So, well, I actually had bought my land before I got that job, but I kind of just figured, well, I don't have any bills. I still wasn't making crazy money, but I was comfortable. And I was like, well, maybe I can do this somewhere else as a vacation destination. I figured Hawaii was like a good place to build a treehouse.
If you're going to go, you might as well go all in, fairly.
Yes. But I just thought, like, the downside, I did not know if it would work, but the downside was I have a treehouse in Hawaii that my friends and family can go to. And if it does work, I don't have to have a normal job. And I really haven't had a normal job for 7-ish years.
That's awesome, because that's very similar mindset. So I'm an engineer by degree, and then 4 months ago I quit my job to write children's fantasy novels. So it was one of those things where it's like, you know what? The upside of doing this is that I get to kind of live life like I want to. I get to have my own schedule. I get it. Like, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be in the middle of a turnaround at a refinery if I wouldn't have quit my job. So
Yeah.
I was like, the upside is huge. The upside is living a life that I want to live. The downside is, okay, it doesn't work, and I've got to go, get hired on somewhere else. So the downside is not that big of a deal. I might have to move or something. But the upside is like heaven on earth.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I figured, and it was pretty immediately successful. And I might disappoint you with my nerdiness, because I am not as crazy as you with the Hobbit stuff. But
I set a very weird bar to jump over, so I'm not offended in any way. You have, with your two bare hands, built a Hobbit hole. So whether you want to admit it or not, you've entered into this realm of nerdiness.
Well, I try to be very accurate, but I was really attracted to the actual house. So I saw like the 1970s cartoon. I saw it in like the 90s, but that was my introduction. And I just always loved the house. And my mom helped me build the treehouse. She was out there for the first month. So it was her and I. And she hates ladders, and I'm building this thing way up in the air.
You have to climb into, yep.
Yeah, everybody's telling me, just put it on the ground. It'll be so much easier. Just put it on the ground. I'm like, yeah, but then it's not cool. The whole point is building a treehouse. But I just told her, the next one, don't worry, you won't have to get on it.
This will be as in the ground as humanly possible.
It was way harder, but she didn't have to get on a ladder, so.
That's incredible. So you kind of always liked the aesthetic of the sort of Hobbit living, because you went out, you had like the cord floors. It looks awesome. Because the first question people always ask me when I'm like, yeah, I've been to Hobbiton, like, oh, can you stay inside of them? I'm like, no, most of them don't even open. The ones that do are just like a storage shed. They have the green dragon in there that you can go eat and have a big feast and stuff. But for the most part, it's just facades. And it's the hugest disappointment to everyone. Like, oh, okay. As if it's like not cool that I went to Hobbiton anymore because you can't stay inside the hobbit holes. But what you offer is...
People go there and have stayed in my place. So you do both.
I'm sure that Venn diagram overlaps pretty...
exactly.
That eclipses pretty well the people who have traveled to Hobbiton and the people who go to your place. So what is your background? You said you did this with your mom. So you just grew up building and doing construction?
Yeah, I come from a big family in Southeast Idaho, and so my dad was a high school speech teacher, and so we didn't have any money, and there were 6 kids, and my mom kind of remodeled our houses. I lived in, I think, 11 houses when I lived with them, and I moved out when I was almost 17, so a lot of moving, but she remodeled our houses, but not in like the HGTV flipping thing. It was more of like the necessity. We could afford a 2-bedroom, but we needed a 5-bedroom.
So we're just going to tack on lots of tree houses. You're out in the tree house, Kristie. You're going to stay there for a couple of years, and that's where it all started, having to live in a shed in the backyard.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it was just necessity, and that's kind of how she learned, but we didn't have Home Depot in our town. There wasn't the internet, so how she learned is insane to me, because I YouTube things every day, even still after building a lot. And but we would like leave for school, and we'd come home, and there would be a sidewalk poured, and it's like, that wasn't in the plans when we left for school, but she happened to see a concrete truck in the neighborhood, and somebody else was doing it, so she ran home and built forms real quick and had them come over and pour. So like, that's kind of how we were raised. Like, you can figure out anything, but most of my siblings don't. I mean, they work on their houses a little bit, but only one of my siblings actually builds.
It's a builder.
And my mom always says, like, I have 4 brothers and they're all big, tough guys, and I'm the weakest person ever. Sad excuse for a female builder, but she's always like, why can't one of your like 6 foot, 230-pound brothers want to do this? Why is it my little girl wanting to build these crazy things?
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's the.
So it was mostly your mom then. So your dad, because your dad's
My
working.
dad is the most content person. He would rather not have a project. He can be roped in, but that is not his thing. He would just be happy with anything. He wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I mean, he's just a happy-go-lucky thing, and my mom has a little bit of a restless spirit.
Just wants to improve and tweak and add.
Yeah.
And
gets bored easily.
So I am from a family of 4 boys, 2 girls as well. So
okay, cool.
Yeah. And where do you fall in the list?
I'm number 4.
You're number 4. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I've got a bunch of humongous brothers as well. That's
yeah.
So the boys in my family went 6'4", 6'2", 6 foot, and I'm 5'10". So talk about the runt of the litter. You're looking at them. That's.
What number are you?
I'm the last. I'm the baby.
You're the baby. Okay.
Yeah.
This is I could talk about like family dynamics forever. I'm the only one of my siblings who doesn't have kids. My baby sister just had her first. So I have a ton of nieces and nephews, and like we're all so different, and it's so interesting to me how you're raised in the same family with the same parents, and you can be so different. And I can only think of 3 commonalities that all of the siblings share. And then some of them are most of the nieces and nephews are too small, but like it's just so weird how one of them would be like confidence. We all have like an insane, maybe it's not confidence, maybe it's self-esteem. Not quite sure what the difference is, but we all have like a really high, like unhealthy amount of self-esteem, and my nieces and nephews do too. And I'm like, how is this possible?
How is it genetic? Well, to be honest, I think a lot of it is when you're like, for kids that know how to take things apart and rebuild them. So like things that you just did all growing up, which was like, okay, I don't know how to do a sidewalk, but I can figure it out. And you just get used to figuring things out. You get used to doing things, and then you just kind of are like, well, I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure I can figure it out. And that's similar to me. I kind of feel like, well, if I can YouTube it, I can kind of do it. So I've done like, I have not built any hobby houses, but I have like little projects in my house. Like I put in odd things. Like I put a sword in the stone on the front walkway. So I've got like a big sandstone block, and I was like, you know what that sandstone block needs? I was like, it needs an Excalibur. So I just bought a sword, and then I tried to look up like homemade Excalibur. Nothing popped up, believe it or not. Yeah. And I rented this big drill. I'd never used one before, and drilled this huge old core out of the thing, and then cemented in the sword. And then I built a secret door to my storage room that's got a bunch of like superhero weapons. So it's got like a Captain America shield and Wolverine's claws and all this stuff. And you pull on a Michelangelo nunchuck and it opens. So I like rigged this gate latch in the back. I had no idea how to do this stuff, but my mom always said like she has no idea how I was born as confident as I mean, and I've failed plenty of times. Don't get me wrong, but I just kind of have this feeling like, if I got time, I can figure it out.
Right.
And the brother immediately older than me is not like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The secret door thing, I used to have a speech that I gave at like tiny house conferences it was on design, but I brought up, there's a meme that says like, if you're a millionaire without a secret door, like you're doing it wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would bring up that slide and I'd be like, but a secret door doesn't cost $1 million, guys. A secret door, like you can do that. Yeah. And why isn't everybody doing that? Because we're under this illusion. And so I think the point of that slide was that we live in these little boxes that we're so concerned about resale value that we're never in. You
are speaking my language.
The thing that we want, the desire that we want. And I'm like, if you just did the crazy, quirky, the secret door, like if you moved tomorrow, that secret door would sell your house because somebody would be like ecstatic about that. Not even somebody, but a lot of people. And that puts you far and away from the next beige box. There's a million beige boxes. Like, do the thing that you want to do and don't be pressured to live in a beige siding, boring house because you want to resell it in a few years.
So
Like
I literally just got the chills as you were talking, because this is the first time I've heard someone say exactly on this topic, exactly my thoughts. Because I've used that exact same argument before. I was like, why do we get so caught up in resale value? Like, well, the person who owns this house after me won't like that. Yeah, but I'm living in the house right now. Why do I care about
well,
them?
and that person, we're just assuming that everybody else is super boring.
Yeah,
That's not true.
Exactly. Finally, I have found someone who espouses the same belief.
Well,
And I
I've
was just
proved
like,
it a lot of times because I've done a lot of crazy remodels and I've done a lot of houses, and I've always found those people. So you can use that in arguments for your next
awesome.
crazy
Thank
thing.
you. Because I was like, at what age do we just become boring? Because as a
Right.
kid, every kid that walks in my basement's like, what? Like a secret door? I was like, yeah, if I want to go get my Halloween decorations, I have to pull on a Michelangelo nunchuck. And I show it to
Yeah.
kids in schools when I go do school presentations. And they're all blown away. And I was like, at what age are you like, no, that's imprudent. I'm not going to put a secret. Like,
Totally.
no one wants to be the boring person, but somewhere the expectation,
Yeah.
someone tells you, no, resale value, or this is what adults do, blah, blah. And then we just all become boring.
Practical. Yeah.
Like my big thing, I tell kids, like the way, I used to watch the Miss America pageant growing up, and Miss America would always say, I wish for world peace. And what I tell students is that, like, the way to world peace is to create awesomeness. Because when you create things that are awesome, like exactly what you did, you create this awesome hob hole, this cool treehouse, and I look at that and go, well, that's freaking sweet. I want something like that. And I'll go create something. And then someone will see that and be like, man, that's cool. I want to create something. And you just I just tell kids it spreads like this awesomeness disease all over the world. And people just start creating cool stuff and start sharing cool things. And I was like, that's how you change the world.
There's no reason not to now, because there's so much you can learn anything. I mean, there's so much information online. Like, kids don't realize how good they have it.
Yes, this is crazy. It's crazy. It's like you're repeating every single thing that's been bounced around in here. Because I tell kids, I was like, with your spare time, you can do three things. You can entertain yourself, you can learn, and you can create. And I was like, entertainment's kind of like a candy. It's good at the moment, but it has no lasting value when you're done. Learning, there's never a better time, just exactly like you said, in the history of the world to learn. And then creating is the best thing, because that's how we're measured at the end of our lives. That's how we're remembered, is by what we create and what we share. And it was funny. I was telling my brother, I was like, "Don't you want to be known as the Hobbit Hole guys? Isn't that a cool thing? Don't you want to be known as the guys with the empire of Hobbit Holes? I would love to be known as that guy. I don't know about you." So you grew up. You said, what do your other siblings do? You kind of said they're all off doing different things. You have one builder.
I have a brother that does that designs like fire suppressant sprinkler systems for the military.
Sure, exactly. So I was going to guess that.
Right
I was going to guess that.
Yeah, and then my brother, who I partner with on some stuff that does actually build. He's bought a property a couple years ago that's has a 100-year-old house, and it's their dream house. And it's right outside Boise. And then there's this huge 100-year-old barn in the back that we remodeled and made into a wedding venue. So that's.
I think I've actually seen it. You've had weddings there, right? It's up and running.
Yeah. We just finished like our first 50 weddings, like our first year.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, and then we're closed down for the winter. So it's been really good, and it was awesome. An awesome project to work with. Most of my projects are much smaller in scale, and so that one, like, usually I start on the floor and I finish the floor the next day. That one, you start on the floor and you're doing that for the next 2 weeks.
Right, it's huge.
It was just him and I, but it was also really nice to be like, oh, that heavy thing, move it over here. Because that also
human
would take
ox.
me hours to do when I'm on a build by myself. So he does that, and then I have a brother who does sales. I have a brother who is a seminary teacher. I have a brother, that's all my brothers. And then my sister just had her first baby, so she is staying at home right now, and she helps me with my management of my Airbnbs.
Man, talk about the cool aunt.
Yeah, it's really funny because I don't have kids, so like my coolness factor lasts a lot longer.
Oh yeah, you can ride that.
I'm like the same age as their moms, but they don't understand because I don't have the responsibility of somebody my age.
There's something to be said. Like I got married super young. We had kids really young. Like I was married at 21. We had my daughter at 22, which is a good way to do it. It's a way to do it. I just feel like my youngest will be out of the house. Hopefully none of them will, Not that I don't want them to return, but I want them to spread their wings and fly away when they're 18 or so. So I'll be an empty nester by the time I'm like 45. So I've done it backwards. So I'm kind of looking at people like you have all this freedom and can do this stuff and kind of, run stuff, at the drop of a hat. And I was like, all right, that's gonna be my 40s. Because I've been 30 for 20 years.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I've been 30 forever. And if I can stay 30 from the age of 20 to 40, I think I'm doing okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I gotta stay.
That's your average.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of 30 now. But if I can feel like I'm still 30, if I can be 30 for a generation, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is so Idaho born and bred. You said Southeast Idaho. Where in Idaho?
Pocatello, but I've been in Boise for a long time, 12
Old
years.
Pokey. So I've written this. I haven't published it yet, but I've written the first book in a series, and it takes place in Pocatello, Idaho.
Does it?
Yeah. So the kid moves from Texas to Pocatello, and it's a story about a boy who lives every day twice. So he's a fourth grader. So it's kind of like Groundhog Day meets sort of school age kids.
Well, Pocatello gets a bad rap, but we have a Utah joke. You're in Utah, right?
I'm in Montana now, but I'm born and raised in Utah.
You're in Montana.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm born and raised in Utah.
People complain about Pocatello being so windy, and it is. It's beautiful, but it's in this valley and it's windy. But we say Pocatello isn't windy. It's just that Utah sucks.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I
love it there, but I could never go back now that I live in Boise. Like, there's just too much good food and like things to do. So I've been trying to get my entire family here for years, and I've done a pretty good job. My parents got here about a year and a half ago, and so nobody's in Pocatello anymore. And then my little sister's in Twin, and my little brother's in Utah. So Twin's close enough, but I need to get my Utah brother over here.
Where's he in Utah?
Like Eagle's Nest, something like that.
Eagle.
It's like a brand new. Everything in that town is brand new.
It's I can't believe I can't even remember this. I gotta look it up now because it's gonna bug me. Eagle Mountain. Eagle Mountain.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, I got a bunch of family close there.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, so I was in Texas for 5 years and Australia for 3, and then up in Montana. And I don't think I can ever leave the Rockies again, because I like my basements, I like my 4 seasons, I like my snow. Although we did drive off the road last Christmas Day at Island Park. So we decided to leave on Christmas, and we were driving, and I've driven in the snow all my life, not a big deal, and just. I didn't hit a skid or anything. I just felt it go. And then a guy pulled over and helped us dig my car out of the snow for like an hour. 20 minutes later, I'm driving by. I was like, hey, that's the guy. And he had driven off.
No.
So I stopped and helped him get his car out. And then I'm sitting there on the road, and you just watch cars just. And I was like, okay, we're out of here. So I think it took us something like 12 or 14 hours to get from Billings to Rexburg. And then we stayed in Rexburg and then did the rest of the driving.
I hate driving in the snow. I drive a ton to the different properties, and
if only you had a snowcat of some sort.
Right?
So you also fix cars, I guess.
I don't like. I have zero interest in cars. Like I am always like I don't even know what I drive most of the time. I'm like it's a blue
Is
car.
that mine?
I don't know. Yeah. So I have like. I hold no value in them. I cannot wait until Tesla comes out with their truck, because I've spent like $500 on vehicles my whole life, but I will drop however much money it is for that thing because I need something to drive me around. I hate driving, but I bought an old Fire Lookout this year. I have like a list of maybe like 10 or 12 like cool builds that I want to do, and the Fire Lookout was one of them. And they're really hard to come by because most of them are on forest land. There's hardly any left. I think there's like 900 left in the United States. Oh, wow. The Northwest has quite a few, but again, a lot of them you can't go into, or they're dilapidated and stuff. So me finding this one, and then that it was in Idaho, was just too perfect.
Right.
But it's got 6 months of winter. I got snowed out. I bought it in like September, started working on it last year, and then I got snowed out a couple weeks later in October. So I wasn't able to get back in until June 1st this year. It was
Holy
still
cow.
snow covered. So I was either going to have to close down for 6 months, or I could find a way to get guests up there in the wintertime. And I've hiked in the wintertime. It's far. It's not fun. But it's beautiful. I mean, like being on top of a mountain that's snow covered and nothing around is awesome. So I bought a vintage snowcat this year, and it was in rough shape, but it had a whole like somebody else had made this cab for it, but it was just functional, not good looking at all. So I remodeled that cab. I didn't really do anything with the engine, and I fixed up the outside and stuff. And I don't drive it. I delivered it to my caretaker, and he will be the one to shuttle guests up and down the mountain in the winter.
So for people who don't know what a snowcat is, you basically bought a small tank.
Yeah,
It's basically what you did. A non-weaponized tank.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like what they groom ski trails with and stuff.
Right.
And that was a bit of a risky move because I don't know anything about mechanical stuff. I have
you looped in the flipping heater. I watched the video the other day.
Yeah, I can wire somewhat.
And got the antifreeze into the heater, and saying words like that would scare off 99.9% of the population. Like, oh, you got to hook the antifreeze. I'm done. Like, never mind. I'm just gonna walk away. Someone else can do it.
I mean, that is one of the things where I can figure it out. And the great thing, it's 1964, so the motor is pretty simple, so you can you can see all the parts and be able to figure it out. But I just call people when I don't know anything about that. So I called an uncle who's a total gearhead, and I'm like, can I swap out this heater because the one that was in there was huge, looked like a fire hazard, and it needs to be really warm back there. So he kind of pointed me in the way of what I should order on eBay, and then I just took pictures of it before I tore it out and then put it back together.
Figure it out. But again, going back, this ability to look at a problem, not really understand or know off the bat how you're going to fix it, but have the confidence to dive into it is, I don't know, it's just something that I feel like a lot of kids don't get today. Like, here's an iPad, here's a video game, here's a TV. And don't get me wrong, I like video games as much as the next guy, but you don't get that whole just go outside, in the backyard, build a fort. Just find pieces of wood and some nails and pound it together. You don't get that whole sense of creativity and confidence with fixing things.
Yeah, I think being poor for so much of my life, and it's something that I struggle with now that I have some financial success, is how to remain creative, and because my favorite things are when I had nothing and but I wanted this thing, and how do I make that with nothing,
Right.
So that's my favorite thing, but it's really hard to self-impose those constraints when you might be able to buy the thing. So now I just feel like my tastes are even more ridiculous, so I'm still able to make them out of my realm. But I think another part of my design talk would be I showed in my original tiny house this, I guess, the kitchen cabinets, but they don't look like kitchen cabinets. It looks like a big piece of furniture. But this kind of furniture with long legs and stuff would be an antique piece. It'd be $600, $800, not going to happen, so that I can convert it and chop it all up and make it into a sink. But I had a picture of what I wanted, and then I kind of show people, deconstruct this picture. So, that's a cabinet, that's a coffee table with these long legs. Well, that coffee table with that long legs is a dime a dozen at every thrift store because everybody had it in 94. And so it's deconstructing all of those pieces and putting it all together, and it looks just like the inspiration piece. And so I guess one of an example that was more recent is in the barn, these massive 24-foot loft, which is the main reception wedding area space, and it's just this massive thing. So I needed a gigantic chandeliers because it's just such a big space. You could never
Right.
just go buy something off the shelf and it work. So I saw something that I kind of liked, but it still wasn't big enough. I needed 2 8-foot chandeliers, 8 foot wide, 8 foot tall. So, pretty much you have to order one custom, and then looking at that, it's like 15,000, 25,000.
Jeez.
Never gonna happen.
You could build a hobbit hole for a chandelier.
Exactly. And so I broke it down. I want it to look like wrought iron. And so what we did was we took conduit and bent it over 2 different sizes of barrels. I think there's 28 like stems of the chandelier. It's kind of hard to explain.
Yep.
And we wired all of them, but connected all those pipes to like a 2-inch ABS pipe that we could run everything, and like the little spindle at the bottom of a chandelier. Oh, there's a chandelier in the background there.
Oh,
the
sweet.
little
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
bauble. That's not the one, but that little bauble, I took like a big couch furniture foot, and put it at the bottom of it. And when you paint it all black, like every person that comes in there is like, wow, those chandeliers are crazy, And we just kind of.
That's crazy. So a lot of what you do is reverse engineer. You look at kind of what you want, and you just go, okay, I could get that piece from this, I could get this piece from that, and then work your way from there.
Yep.
That's incredible. Exactly. That is so, because I was looking at like the cord flooring that you did at the Hobbit hole, and I'm just like, that is so cool. It would be a ginormous pain in the butt. But again, if you were strapped for cash or something, and you're like, well, if I could put sweat equity in this, and I could just elbow grease this thing, I could come up with something really cool. And it looks awesome. And it's.
I lost you.
Did you lose me?
Okay, now you're
back.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
I was just commenting on your cordwood floor of your Hobbit hole. Just saying, like, you can put sweat equity into it, and you can put time and effort into it, and you can come up with something awesome, even if all you have is a log. And you cut it enough times, and you make a floor out of it.
That's the thing that I feel like is hard. There's a quote by some CEO, and I can't remember his name, but he says that he's given his daughter every advantage in life besides being disadvantaged. And
that's really
how do you cultivate that? I mean, you're a parent, I'm not. I don't have to worry about it too much, but how do you cultivate that? Because you want your kids to have what you didn't, or maybe you had everything. But how do you cultivate how to figure things out and the desire to do that, and not just buy something, because it will be way cooler if you build the cordwood floor than if you buy, the laser printed wood etching. Like, so for me, a lot of times people will say, well, that's going to be too hard. Don't do that. Like, that's, I mean, even my mom, who's like who I bounce everything off of, she'll be like, oh, why do you have to do that? Like, but I'm like, the only.
Don't you know me by now?
Yes. Anybody can put in a wood floor, and anybody can have that in their house. But yeah, this is going to be hard. But that's the one thing that makes it so much cooler, because 99% of the people are not willing to go that extra mile to do the difficult thing. And so, yeah, it's way harder to make your own vanity out of something else than to buy one from Home Depot. And I mean, I go to Home Depot a lot, but I don't buy anything. When it gets to my house, it doesn't look like the thing that you bought off the shelf.
Right.
So, but that is the way that you can differentiate, or should be like, well, you can get hand painted signs at Hobby Lobby, and I'm like, I don't want anybody to walk into any place I design
think it's a Hobby
like,
Lobby.
I have that in my living room,
right?
So I think that's a hard thing to cultivate, and now that I do have more resources, it's something that I try to be aware of, so I don't just go buy something, or even at the treehouse when I didn't have a lot of money but enough money to do it, I would be like, it really makes me mad if I like went and bought screws and then I came and I'm like, oh, I had this nail that could have worked for this thing or whatever, I could have made this scrap work. And so sometimes I would just be like, okay, you cannot go to the store today. And if I get to a project and I get to a dead end and I'm like, okay, well, I could run to the store and go get this thing and then continue this project, I'm just like, okay, fine, it's a dead end. And most of the time I will come up with a way to continue that project with what I have there. But I have to like kind of self-impose those things. And that's also why I love remodeling, even though I do lots of like builds from the ground up. I love remodeling because those constraints are built in already.
Right. Yeah. Man, I love that mindset. And again, that's like super hard to impose on your kids because it's like, Dad, why do you do this? Well, because you need to learn how to make something out of nothing.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah, it's hard.
it's
It's tough
super
because
hard, but
you can buy so many cool things now.
I know, and it's so easy and so accessible, but just being able to like, and it's funny the time this is a really really stupid example, but like the sense of accomplishment from opening something up, fixing it, and putting it back together. Like I
Yeah.
remember this was like I can't remember how many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. My son had a Nerf gun, and it like stopped working, and I opened the thing up, and first I was like, "What engineer designed this thing?" Like, have you seen inside a Nerf gun?
No.
It's like an atomic bomb with its complexity. I don't know who designs those things. Anyway, so I opened it up and there's like 1,000 different pieces, and I found the one that was broken, and I kind of like Jimmy rigged it back together, and I put it back and it worked, and I was like, yeah, yeah, your dad can fix a
did
Nerf gun.
that.
Thanks, straight.
Yeah.
Or like I opened some dishwasher latch or something, and typically, I don't know, if you this might sound weird, but if you don't grow up learning that things are built with small pieces, other than because sometimes you just think it's a black box. That's a dishwasher thing. It's a handle, and it just works. I don't know how it works. I'm not interested. But it's like, no, there's screws to put the thing together. You can open it up. You can see how it works. There's springs. There's like, sometimes the best thing you can do is, as I tell the kids with the secret door downstairs, I was like, the point at which I actually started making a lot of progress on the project was when I tore the door off. Because once you tear the door off,
Yeah, there's no going
you
back.
got to kind of put one back on. And so
Yeah.
that's some of the best things you can do. Some of the best advice I can give to kids is tear the door off. Now,
Yeah, you gotta
I don't want them to just go willy-nilly destroying things, but with the idea of fixing it or spending the time to repair it, I think that's one of the best things you can do is you paint yourself into a corner
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
engineer your way out of it.
Yeah.
I just think so much of that's lost on the youth today. I'm just gonna break a bunch of my kids' toys and give them some super glue and just have them go at it.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
All your Christmas presents, you should deconstruct them before you put them under the tree this year. It's something that I think about, but I don't really have an answer to, and I'm always trying to put those restraints on myself to not lose that creativity, because you also don't want to just be like, well, this is what makes me good, so I'm just going to be poor forever, I'm going to give all my stuff away, because that's not good either. So it's trying to balance that.
So do you go around and do a bunch you said you speak at like tiny house conferences, but because you could give inspirational talks of all sorts. You could go to schools, you could go to everywhere.
I hate public speaking.
What?
So I have done it, and but I turn down a lot. I don't enjoy it. Like I feel like before I give a speech, I say like, I suck at this. Like, I'm not good. I am not articulate enough. I'm nervous, but I'm like, I'll make up for it in content. Like, I'm going to look like a mess up here, but I'm going to give you so much information.
Just take notes. Don't pay attention too much.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't love that. And then podcasts are much more my game, because I love having conversations with people. And this doesn't feel nerve-wracking at all, but somehow standing up in front of a huge room does. And so that's not my jam. And then also, I think like I could get distracted with stuff easily by doing consulting or things like that. When I have so many things I want to build and accomplish, I feel like I could easily get sidetracked from what I love the most, which is, just building
creating
things with
and
my
building.
hands. Yeah.
It was funny too, because when I looked at as I said, I've been like wanting to build a hobbit hole somewhere, whether it's in my own flipping backyard or in the lot next to me or buying land in Utah or something. And my father-in-law is kind of a handy guy. He came up, like, this was right when we moved in. We had an unfinished room in the basement. He drove 9 hours up here, framed it, and I got home from work. He's like, all right, Mike, I'll see you later. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, sweet, okay. So I have a really handy father-in-law, and he was like, because I've been slowly bringing him up to speed with this idea of this hobbit hole. And, and in that video you do where you're like, yeah, I got this headboard. It was $5. Because that's what my one brother asked. He's like, how expensive is this going to be? I was like, well, if you're creative like this Kristie lady is, but I don't think we can bank on that. I don't think we have that tool in our tool belt to be able to like repurpose something from some antique, you know, DI or Goodwill and turn it into something that looks awesome. But I think that is that's the plus side of a hobbit hole. Is it's supposed to be kind of rustic. It's supposed to be a bit rough around the edges. It's supposed to
Well,
be
and
like
that
that.
is the fatal flaw of a lot of hobbit holes that you might see out there. Well, so most hobbit holes, if you said that you see a lot of them,
Oh
are
yes.
a cottage with a round door. Anything with a round
Right.
door.
Oh, it's a hobbit
And
hole. Right.
yeah, and for me, it was like, this thing has to be buried. My next ones, I'm going to build completely different engineering.
So you're going
So
to
I
turn
don't
the
know.
whole the same area. I think you said you were have
Yeah,
like a communal kitchen you plan on doing, or put it in some more.
yeah, I have quite a bit of land up there, and so I plan on doing a village. And that's not normally what I would do because like it is really cool being up there and being the only two
Right.
people like in the world. But so like with my tree house, people are like, just build tree houses, build a million tree houses. And
Right.
I'm like, well, that would be smart financially as a business person, but that's like taking out the equation of like me being fulfilled and doing the project that I want to do. So people are like, oh, does that make sense to have builds in every state? And I'm like, no, it doesn't make any
Just
sense. It's
stretch yourself as
very
thin as
difficult.
possible geographically. We're going to go Alaska. I'm going to put something in Russia.
Yeah, not a great idea, but it's like what makes me happy, and that's the main goal here. And so by having more tree houses next to each other kind of diminishes the value, but I think where it's different with the hobbit hole is having more makes it look like a village,
Oh,
and
it's Hobbiton at
and
that point.
hobbits are all about the community and eating together and stuff. So I want to incorporate that part. The one hobbit hole is awesome, everybody loves it, but I think that it actually will be better by having more up there.
Yeah, I agree.
My problem is it's so busy, and it is
How do you do construction up there next to it?
yeah, when somebody's waited a year and is flying from like the Czech Republic, like how do I go in there and bring an excavator? So that I have a few weeks blocked off next year, but it's in the spring, and sometimes we still have snow on the ground, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get anything accomplished. And it's a hard build. Of all the builds
Right.
I've done, it's
Not
tough.
a simple one. If you dress the excavator up like a dragon or something, they
Right?
won't even notice. I'll give you that idea for
I
free.
should do
Yeah.
that. That is
Like a
I
big ring
love that
wraith or
idea.
something.
I might do that.
If you dress all the workers up like hobbits, it will just be part of like,
I would have to pay them so much money.
it's like, by the way, we're going to dig this out and you can't do it with an excavator. You got to do it with a hand shovel and you have to be dressed up like a hobbit. So
Yeah.
that is the
And that would
conditions
cost
to
a
work
lot
here.
of money.
You have to pay
I do have
actors
lots
to
of
go
guests.
up and
My
run
guests are like,
interference.
yeah, my guests are way nerdier than me, and it's been awesome because they do come in costumes,
Oh,
and
I'm sure they
it
do.
blows my mind. Sometimes their dogs are in costumes, and it and they're it's the only place that I have like a book for people to write things, and that was completely by accident. I thought I was buying this really cool leather bound book of The Hobbit,
Yeah.
but it was just a Hobbit journal.
Oh,
So
okay.
the pages were blank inside, and so I put that in the drawer, and now I've replaced it several times. But people's notes are so beautiful, and they sketch and they write a poem, and I mean, like the creativity of those guests versus like my others, it blows me away.
Right.
And so my ritual when I'm up there, which I was just up there a few days ago, reading all of the things, it is like so rewarding, seeing how like this creative thing that I did, but they took it to a whole nother
Right.
level.
It
I mean, it's
spawns
just
additional
awesome.
people are inspired to create things on their own,
Exactly.
and then it can inspire back to you or inspire other people.
Yeah.
Kristie, this is how the world gets to be a better place, is one hobbit hole at a time. It's my true belief.
Yeah.
That's just, it's so cool. I got to get up there. I gotta book one 400 days out in advance.
You gotta, we post our last minute cancellations on Instagram. They pop up from time to time, but you're in Montana. I mean, that's a decent drive. It's
So
in the middle of
you're,
the in Washington.
yeah, you're So every year we go to Spirit Lake, Idaho for a family reunion, which is right
Okay.
next to, it's like between Coeur d'Alene and Spokane.
Yeah.
So we're up in that direction. So how far is it from Spokane?
It is 3 hours from Spokane,
Yeah.
west, but that is like maybe an hour and a half from the Lookout
Oh,
in
okay.
Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene's about 40 miles away from the Lookout.
Sweet. So that's your little hot spot up there, little northern
Mm-hmm.
Idaho, Washington. That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
The area, this spot you found, I mean, I haven't been there, but I looked at pictures, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow, if you wanted to find a place that looked like the rolling hills of Hobbiton, you found it on
It wasn't
steroids.
it wasn't easy because one, it has to be cheap enough for me. But I spent I spoke at a tiny house conference, and then my mom and I drove all around Washington and Oregon looking for land, like looking at every cheap piece of land
So
there
you look at
is.
land first, and then, or do you just go like, you know what, we know what area that's pretty, I'm going to find an area and then try to find land for sale? Or did you just go look up plots for sale and then go to each of them?
I did that. So
You did
I
that?
on Zillow, on the app on Zillow, you can the lowest it goes, I think it's 50,000 on a computer. You can make it go to any
Right.
amount, but I scroll clear down to the lowest amount that you can
Sort
search.
by cheapest.
Yes, and then I just do land, and then you just like heart them, save them, and then travel to all of them. And there's always a reason why the land's cheap. Like you either have to drive through a real rough trailer park to get to it, or there's no easement.
Go
Like
through
the beautiful,
Deliverance to get to your
yeah.
hobbit hole. Some
Well, and
guy's
for
playing the
people,
banjo and whistling to you as you go past.
which I
Right.
have no problem with that if I were to live there, but for guests,
It's a bit
you want to
intimidating.
minimize that. Um, and if you're building something for yourself, like a lot of those things go out the window because you don't have to worry about, well, is there enough people around here to visit? They're all. So if you were to build, in your backyard or on your side lot, like you don't have to worry about so many other
Right, that
things.
you've
But
had to worry about.
yeah, and I was really trying to go coastal to try to avoid winters, because winter sucks,
Yeah.
for a rental. But I didn't find it. So I do have, my place does have winter, and it is tough, but it makes up for, I mean, it's still beautiful in the wintertime, and it makes up for, like, the lot was just perfect. But we spent 2 weeks looking at everything, didn't find anything right. I mean, I know that hobbits can live in lots of different terrain or whatever, but I really wanted the
No, you
rolling
want the
hills.
one,
So,
yeah.
yeah, you could have had it in a forest, and there was foresty properties, and that could be executed really well. But for what I was aiming for, I just didn't find it. And I got home, and then I was speaking with somebody, and they're like, "Have you checked out Chelan, Washington?" And I'm like, "Never even heard of it." And so I got on Zillow, and I looked, and I just booked up there the next day, and I was like,
You're like,
this is
where
it.
was
And,
that advice 2 weeks ago when I was driving
right,
around friggin'
exactly.
Washington all over the place?
Exactly. There
Thanks a
were lots
lot.
of cool places, but yeah, there's so many like beautiful lots that you can see Mount Hood, and then like there's no easement, there's no road access into it,
Right.
so like impossible to build. Or yeah, there's lots of there's always a reason. It's just whether that reason is one you can deal with or
So
not.
this one has no utilities, there was no gas, you had to go off the grid?
Yeah, there's no electricity, there's no water, which is tough. And so yeah, there's quite a few people have bought since I've been up there for their cabins, but yeah, no utilities, which is a hard thing, especially with guests. Again, way easier if you're building something cool for your own deal, like you can conserve, but having people from Seattle, that it's nice weather there, and then they come over right now and it's snow covered, and even
Right.
though we warned them 4 times about having 4-wheel drive and
Yep.
high clearance vehicle, they still come in their
Toyota
sports
Camry,
car.
yeah.
Yes, and then so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of challenges with that, which I do enjoy, at dealing with all of those things, and the whole experience of from like them either arriving at the airport and getting there, to like when they first walk in and what they're going to spend their time doing and all of that. Like I love coming up with the whole the whole stay.
So most people that go up there, are they just, because I think I would just chill, sit, look, write, just kind of soak it up. I don't even think I would do any activity, but people hike. What else do people do up there?
Yeah, this was a misstep that I made because I was very particular where I was going because I had to be someplace that people were already traveling to. And so Chelan is it's the largest lake in Washington. It's a
Oh,
beautiful
okay.
town, and it's got good food, and it's cute and great. And with Hawaii, people are going to Hawaii, even though I'm not in a touristy area. Hawaii alone just has enough people going that I don't have to worry about trying to get people there. Like the Lookout, I have to get people to go there because it isn't
Right.
a place
It's in the
anybody's
middle
traveling
of
to.
nowhere.
Yeah, and that my thinking is, well, but every Lookout, so you know that you're going to travel
Yeah, it's the
to
whole
the middle of
point,
nowhere.
right?
Yes,
You don't go
right.
to a
So that's
lookout
why.
because it's right outside the edge of town.
Yeah, there's a sweet A-frame for sale by it that's like unfinished that I'd love to save, but I'm like, I can't get anybody here for an A-frame, and I
Yeah.
really want an A-frame. But so for Chelan, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. It's touristy, it'll be great. And then people do not leave the Hobbit hole. They
That's what
very
yeah.
rarely go into town. They go up there and they do not leave. So yeah, it's just, there's no like electronics. There's no, you might get some cell service in the yard, so you don't even have that. And this is most of my places don't have all of them. They don't have TV. They don't have Wi-Fi. I thought that was going to be a big deal for guests. But like some of my favorite reviews, there's one that for the treehouse that's all like honeymooners for the most part. And I didn't anticipate that either. It just happened, and the design was kind of romantic anyway, so it works out. But she said that her husband was really upset when they got to the treehouse and they realized there wasn't Wi-Fi. He's like, "What are we gonna do?" And then she writes like two paragraphs of like what they did. So
Of
we
which you can't read.
and we played this game, and we did this, and we did that, and she just, they had the best time ever because there weren't those distractions.
Right.
And a lot of times people will ask me about all my places, like, what kind of bed is that? Or what, we want to buy these sheets because they think that they had like the best sleep of their lives because of the bedding. But really it's because you didn't have, you didn't have any distractions for 2 days, and you went to bed when the sun goes down or, that really helps.
I think that's even whether people realize it or not. I think some people might, but a lot of people might not. Is even like more every single day that we're tied into electronics, there's gonna be a demand for this kind of stuff. A demand for people to untether themselves or sort of detach themselves from electronics. And again, that's the brilliance of the Hobbit hole. That's the whole experience. The experience isn't to go sit in a Hobbit hole and play words with friends on your phone.
Right.
The idea is to go there, soak it up, write, think, sit, talk, do as a hobbit does. When in Hobbiton, do as a hobbit does. And man, that's so cool. So people just pack in like lunches and stuff and pack in food. They go into town. How do they do it?
Yeah, we don't have a kitchen. I don't cook, so this is something that I don't put in my places. And I traveled for 2 years with the Idaho Potato Commission, and I stayed in hotels, like a different hotel room, for like 250 days of the year.
Wow.
And what I observe and realize is that the gym at the hotels, nobody's ever in it. The pools, nobody's ever in it. The business center, nobody's ever using. And so we require all of these things, and we have like good intentions, but it's not going to be used, And I think of places as a hotel room, not as a traditional house, and people are staying for a few nights at a time. But with my first one with the treehouse, I had a coffee, station, and then that was it. And people would ask, well, where is the kitchen? And I'd be like, there's not one. And then they wouldn't book. I'm like, you're on your honeymoon. You think that you're going to cook food? You're not going to cook food. There's tons of great restaurants. But what I ended up doing is I undermounted like a cooler, so you can't tell that it's there, but there's a cooler that you can add ice and put like drinks in to keep them cool. And then we have coffee and we have like local snacks and stuff. My thing is like, I don't want you to have to leave the place right in the morning because you're starving, or the people that drink coffee have to have it right when they wake up. So we take care of those things. But I changed my response to say, I'm not going to convince somebody that they're not going to they're not going to be frugal on their honeymoon and end up cooking, you know. So I can't do that, but I just say, you know, I eat out when I'm here. Some people bring non-perishable sandwiches or this or that, you know, and make their food. And I also added like a sink in that one, and that eliminated every inquiry. Never has, like, from like month 2, nobody asks where the kitchen is. Like, it just completely dissolves that. And the Hobbit Hole is different because I figured that they would go into town, and there's great food in town. I'm working on, I can't give away a lot of like the little Easter eggs inside the place. That's why you need to go stay.
Oof,
but I'm working on with the little restaurants to have secret menu items for my Hobbit guests to try to get people in there.
That's
because
cool.
right now I have like the food recommendations I have is like second breakfast,
right?
You know, like the whole thing. And I have which restaurants. But I think it'd be really cool to take it a step further and be like, you know, there's a secret meal there that you can order to try to get people into town more, because it is cool. But again, if you only get one night, you're not going to leave. You're going to spend all of your hours there. So yeah, people will sometimes bring like a propane cook stove, or they'll just bring something that doesn't need to be cooked and eat it there. And then we have pastries and coffee and tea and cocoa, so you won't starve to death if you came totally unprepared.
So you said you had like what, 13, 12 other ideas? Are they all secret ideas, or are they?
No, most of them, they're just like unique places. So there's a windmill that I'm eyeing.
Of course.
But it's in a bad location, so it'd have to be moved. And I just don't have time now. I did buy an Airstream, an old Airstream this summer. So I plan on putting that someplace southwest. My current project is the potato.
Okay, I'd heard like, you know, so I'd heard randomly like, oh, Kristie Wolfe's done, you know, a tree house, blah, blah, and a giant potato. And I'm like, wait, what? And I couldn't find any pictures of it or anything. So I was like, I don't know if I read wrong, or I'm not putting it past you.
It's so hard to explain. So when I worked for the Potato Commission, we have this semi truck, and it's modeled after this old postcard that has a semi truck with a big potato on it, and it's from like the 1950s.
Right.
And so for their 75th anniversary, the Potato Commission made a real truck with this huge 6-ton fake potato that the whole country thinks is real. And it travels all around to like the Kentucky Derby, Times Square, and like some lady's 95th anniversary, but she's loved Idaho
just
potatoes.
Shows up different.
Yeah, so you just go do fun stuff for 8 months, and I did that for 2 years, and the potato doesn't do anything. It's just that people are like, holy cow, was that a potato that just crushed us? Because it's this huge thing. Well, it was only supposed to go on the road for a year, but it was so successful it went on the road for 7 years, and I was on there year 2 and 3. It was awesome, and got to see like, so now I've been to all the states except for Alaska, and been to them like on a pretty intimate level, like small towns, big cities, you know, just awesome experience. And I always was like, I'm going to make that into a tiny house. And this is before I had built my tree house or anything. I'm like, I'm going to get this because they're going to retire it soon. Well, this year they finally upgraded to a fiberglass model, because this one was made out of cement, like a rubberized cement that they use on rock climbing walls. So not like the most roadworthy thing ever. So they made a fiberglass one, and they gave me the old potato. And
no way.
Yeah, it now sits where my original tiny house was out south.
Just this giant potato out in the middle of this tree farm.
Well, this isn't a tree farm. That's where I rented. So this is just field and nothing. It's like a railroad and field. So it literally looks like it plopped out of the field. And I plan on planting potatoes on my back acreage that people will actually be able to like go dig up or see the plants going. So that's my current project. But yeah, I'd like to build an A-frame. I'd like to do something that's floating or something on an island. Yeah, I have a bunch of them. Who knows?
Nuts. Like the different people that must seek your attention. Like, you've got the big fantasy nerd people like me. You have, you know, honeymooners. You now have, I don't know.
You know,
You're
I
gonna get
have
the
a lot
potato
of
people, but I guess you probably know everyone in the potato business already. There's probably
kind
not
of.
not big players in the potato business you don't already rub shoulders with.
Well, it's so surprising because, you know, I want to do a treehouse. Everybody has wanted a treehouse at some point in their
Yes.
life.
Yep.
You know, so I'm like, easy, right? Everybody has wanted to stay in a hobbit hole, even if you're not like a, you know,
Hardcore. Yeah.
yeah, even if you're not hardcore. Like, so most of the people that stay at the hobbit hole, like 70% are hardcore. Well,
Right.
one of the husband or the wife are hardcore, and somebody
Dragging
gives
the other
them
one
a
along.
gift.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah,
it was with me and my wife in Hobbiton. I made everyone wear cloaks, and my wife's like,
yeah,
we're seriously wearing cloaks? I was like, yeah, we're in Hobbiton. We're not
absolutely.
gonna. So we all wore cloaks, and we got treated like royalty. It was
Right?
best
You
decision ever.
definitely should.
Best decision ever.
So I forgot where I was going with that. What were we talking about?
You were saying how kind of the different people that seek your attention. So you have like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I have that, but I have a lot since I do off-grid building. Again, for me, it's more like sustainability. I'm into that. But I have a lot of people who are like
doomsday
off-grid
preppers.
survivalists, like
Yeah.
anti-government. Like I have a really
What a
large
life.
portion of that, and they don't get that. I don't say which way, but I'm like, yeah, they don't understand that, like, I mean, I pick up litter like compulsively. It's something I had to like make myself not do. It's like my favorite thing in the world is picking up roadside litter. And like these are probably the same people that are kind of doing it, and so they don't realize that I'm doing it like for the planet, and they're being off grid, or they want to build this bunker or this thing because they think that the world is ending. You know, so I have a lot of those, which is
awesome.
is pretty interesting.
Like the whole potato thing too, going back to the potato thing, like I would love to be in the boardroom where they're like, you know, the potato commission, they're like, all right, Phil, I got this idea. See what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a giant what? Like who's like, you know what? That's a hell of an idea, Bob. Make this giant, that's gonna work. You know, like how do you?
A marketing firm was the one who pitched it because originally they wanted to do a coffee table book, and the marketing firm was like, like
Coffee table book or 7-ton potato. And
it was like difficult for them to get, but then after that, I mean, it's just been so big, and like Kobe Bryant mentioned it in an interview, and so all those like potato commission guys were like, oh, what? Like we're geniuses, you know? So it's been such a great, it's been their most successful promotion. It's awesome. But I had to go into the board and be there when they voted on whether to give it to me or not. So it was
that was probably nerve-wracking. That's like being sentenced to life or death. Pretty nerve-wracking.
Like,
come on.
But,
what was the vote? What was the vote?
Everybody voted for it. So that
would be awesome if one person's like, no, she will not get that potato. Like, what are your other plans for the potato?
They didn't really have any better options. Was kind of how I
exactly.
I left out.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah, what else are they gonna do?
Someone wants it,
you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Oh, that's where I was going. So hobbit holes, like, 30% probably just want to stay in some place cool. And then most of them are like hardcore. Somebody's hardcore. But then the potato, nobody has ever thought of wanting to stay in a potato. Like, that's not
very true.
a thought. But I haven't even got started on it, and I have got more publicity, more reporters like calling me to talk about it than anything. It's already been written up in Food Network magazine. Like, it might be my most successful one, and it's crazy. One that like I have no bearings for how to pick it, because I'm like, everybody's wanted to stay in a hobbit hole. Nobody's ever wanted to stay in a potato. Like, that's not a thing.
I love this though, because it just goes to prove that when you're creative and you're fun and you're willing to take a little bit of risk, the world rewards you. The world rewards you for creativity. You know what's going to happen? You're going to get right off the bat some guy who's like, I've waited 70 years to live inside a potato. And it's like, you're going to meet that guy. You're going to meet the guy who has waited his entire life to live inside of a potato, and you're going to make his life. And then he's going to live in there, and he's going to walk out, and he's going to die. And he's going to die happy. That's what's going to happen. I'm calling it right here.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I'm excited about it.
Man, I am so glad to have found you and your creations. Like, it makes... This is the weirdest, but it like brightens my day. It brightens my day that someone's out there just kind of going for broke. That's like, yeah, I'll go live in Hawaii, just kind of like pull up stakes for a while and build a treehouse. Yeah, I'll go. Like I'll spend 2 weeks looking for a Hobbit hole property. I love that
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people out there like you, but I'm glad that there is. I'm glad that there are people out here pursuing these things, and then with the know-how and at least the courage to figure out how to do it and to will it
Yeah,
into
like you said,
existence.
I felt lots of things don't work. It's just a process of figuring out what will work, and you just have to be okay with it not working, and then keep on improving.
And then just keep
upon
on
that.
trucking.
Yeah,
So cool.
yeah.
So if people want to find you, you're kind of all over your Instagram, Facebook, whatever. What is the best if you recommend if someone wants to find you? Where should they go?
Instagram is what I'm most active on, and mine is Kristie May Wolfe, my name. But my individual properties all have their own Instagram where we highlight guest photos, and so I'm usually posting at whichever build I'm on. So the first of the year I'll be posting mainly from the Big Idaho Potato Hotel account.
So cool. So in 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? What's Kristie doing
Well,
5 years from
hopefully
now?
my village, my Hobbit village, is done in Epic, which I will have to. So before I know that people are super passionate about it, so I know like I can't misstep and like have something totally off because I'll be called out on it. So I would like go on forums and search for things because
Right.
when I decided to do it, like I read the books, and then I haven't been to the Hobbit Inn, or mine's called the Hobbit Inn.
You should go.
Hobbit Inn. Well, here's my thing is that I don't want to be too I don't want to be at risk of copying anything.
Okay.
So I read it and like let it go, and then I work on something. But even for all my properties, I will like completely immerse myself, read everything about a topic. So when I was doing the treehouse, I was listening to a lot of books, fiction and nonfiction, about jungle and the Amazon and different rainforests and stuff, to kind of have that like permeate and hopefully come out
Right.
somewhere else. But yeah, I try not to look at too many photos and things like that, so I'm not copying, and I just generally want the right feel. But then when it came to like details, I don't want to misstep. So I know one of them was like, I wanted to put this cool cuckoo clock in there, and I'm like, well, did hobbits have clocks? And so then I get on forums and I'm like searching and asking people, and they're like, yes, on page 400 it says so and so, it's noon, blah blah blah, the clock struck, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, cool, I can do this. So you're going to have to be my
Wow.
go-to on asking, like, what would actually be, would this work?
Sure, I will provide free consulting for, yeah.
Yeah, you'll be my nerd on call.
That is awesome.
Hopefully that village will be done. That one's a huge undertaking. And then, yeah, hopefully I've made my way through that list. I don't know. I'm not like committed that this is going to be forever. I love building and creating these experiences, and so as long as I love doing it, I'm gonna keep on doing it. But yeah, I have my list, and we'll see how far I get into that. And so hopefully in 5 years I'll have at least 5 more builds.
There's very few people that I could ask that question to that would reply with, what are you doing in 5 years? Well, I hope to build a couple more hobbit holes and have a habitable potato by the end of 5 years. So that's, I mean,
Yeah.
your plan is basically to pursue the stuff that makes you happy. That's your plan. I mean, and it could
Yeah.
change. You're open to the fact that it could keep on, building these tiny homes, these quirky homes, or it could be something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, right now I feel like pretty grateful to like be healthy enough and like physically healthy enough to be able to do all of this, but at some point I'm gonna get tired.
I feel like I'm 100.
Maybe not.
I already, yeah.
We'll see.
That's just so cool because, without having to sort of open this up again, but I was just convinced how life was you got a career, you worked your way through the career, you may or may not like it, but it doesn't really matter. That's the burden you have to shoulder as an adult. And there's a lot of truth to that, and there's a lot of value in that. But this whole like pursue, try to monetize your passions, try to like pursue the things that truly do make you happy and that you're passionate about and that your heart and soul is into, that was just off the table until one day it wasn't.
Yeah.
Until one day I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this, and I just did it, and then it just like the whole thing changed.
Opens up. Yeah, I think it's hard. Like, I think you're probably the same way as me that has like a million passions and could have done like a million things.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I could have done a ton of different careers and been very happy, and that's why I can't like say that this is the thing. But there's so many people that they're like, I don't have anything that I'm passionate about. Like, I can't follow my passion because I'm not passionate about anything. And that's hard because I'm like, how? How was that possible?
I've had these exact same conversations, these exact same thoughts. Because my brother, he said the same thing. He's like, I don't know what I would do. This is back when I was an engineer, and I was like, I know exactly what I would do if I wasn't an engineer. Exactly. I know the kind of life I want. I know the things that I want to pursue. And he's like, yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, that we are lucky because it seems so much harder to not know and just be like, well, this is it. Nothing exciting, or I like golfing, but I'm not going to be a pro golfer, you know?
Right.
What I try to encourage people to do is follow a curiosity. I think that's like far less, lots of people don't feel passionate about anything, but there's got to be something that you're curious about, or something that an article that you read, or something that piqued your interest, and then follow that down a rabbit hole, and maybe it leads somewhere.
That's good advice.
But yeah, it's tough when you don't know. And also, like, I'm really passionate about business, and that can be in so many different realms in the business that I'm in, but there's overlaps. So I'm passionate about design and experience and business, and so I'm able to create this thing. But I could have just been a marketing manager somewhere and probably loved it too, because I love marketing. And so, yeah, I think that is also a tough predicament to be in, because if you say, you know, you got to just do it, it's like most people don't even know what that is. Don't even know what to pursue. Yeah.
And I think it's a blessing and a curse, because I told people, like, I could have been, like, there's these poor, like, I could see myself, because I'll like go hunting. Like when I lived in Texas, I started to hunt. And I was like, I could totally get into this. I could hunt every day. I could be part of this crew, and that's a totally different crew, I can guarantee you, than fantasy nerds. And I was like, oh, I could do this fantasy thing. I speak at, you know, I'm going to go speak at this fantasy convention in February, and I go to these, you know, and I was like, these are two, like the Venn diagram of the people that overlap is very, very small. But I have like 1,000 things in my Venn diagram. Like the amount of people that are into all the different things that I'm into, probably very, very few. But it's so yeah, it can be a blessing and a curse. But that's why I was like, how do I get a brand where I monetize all my passions, where I'm telling stories, I'm writing books, I'm talking to kids, I'm trying to be inspirational. But then I was like, this podcast thing, I have to do a podcast, because I love reaching out and seeking, you know, finding people like you, seeing how they tick, seeing their story. I want to like start a Twitch channel, which is like a streaming video game thing, because I do stupid voices and dress up like characters and just do stupid stuff. And I was like, if I can do all of this, like, and I was like, so what does that look like? What is a brand or a product that encompasses all of these and then monetizes those? And so it's just been trying to piece that together, just trying to figure out how can I do this? Like,
entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's on the opposite side of the not knowing what you want to do to want to do everything. You're talking about hunting. I am making a snow globe of the Lookout right now, and so the sections are small in the craft store, but all of the little diorama stuff, like everything teensy tiny. So I've been going there and I've been trying to figure out how to make mine from scratch. And I'm like, oh, this is dangerous. Like, I could really get into this, which is so weird, because I don't really normally like tiny things. I like to do big things, but it's so different. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of dangerous. So yeah, I totally feel you there. And I'm like
woodworking. I would love just to get into woodworking. I could just be out in the shop, but I was like, I haven't built that many things in my life, but like, I could see myself dedicating an inordinate amount of time to doing that. I love doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's like where I have to be careful about like not doing these things, to be able to like, is this going to get, am I going to be happy with doing this? There's a million things that I could do, and I could like doing it for that amount of time. But if I'm going to dedicate and put quotes together and a web page and all this stuff, you know, like, is that really worth it, or is that really like it? I like it.
Right.
I like so many things, but I love doing this thing. So.
Has anyone ever approached you about like doing a TV show or like a YouTube, like develop? Because I know you have a YouTube channel, but like developing a show on YouTube or something. So
I shot a pilot about the Hobbit Hole for HTV. I probably get a production company every week and some of the shows that are pitched are. I'm going to tell you like the craziest show I got pitched, which was a home show with Mr. T. You know, like. You
passed up a home show with Mr. T?
Oh, I could tell you. I could go on forever. And it was called Pity the Tool. And he would go in and destroy a house, and then I would be the person that the other half that makes it beautiful again.
That is one of the greatest things I have ever been told.
Well, so they sent me
to
try to get me to do it. They sent me a video of Jimmy Kimmel, I think, making fun of it because the hashtag on like their little sizzle reel, they spelt pity wrong. And I'm like, you're trying to get me to do this show where you're like advertising that you don't have your ducks in a row. So anyway, I shot a pilot. I was hesitant about it because I didn't think that I would like to be on camera. I didn't want to like do cheesy puns and stuff because it's just not me. I'm a happy person, but I'm not gonna like turn it up for the camera. And I haven't had a TV in my adult life.
That's crazy, yeah.
So I'm also probably like not the best person to judge. And when I see TV, I'm like, wow, that's bad.
I think that's where like something like, because there's some really high quality like YouTube stuff that people generate, and then you have 100% creative control. You don't have to be like, I'm going to feed you, because that's HGTV is just feeding you lines. Like their whole like House Hunters thing has been shown to be like all fake. The people have like already bought the house when they're like looking at other houses. You just feel like it's all contrived.
I don't want to like ruin all of my ties with HGTV because they were wonderful, but they had House Hunters has tried to get my treehouse on multiple like Paradise House Hunters, Hawaii House Hunters, and I'm like, it's not for sale, and they're like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, that's stupid. Like, I don't want to do that. But for me, like HGTV, I hardly had any contact with them, and I've done quite a few like little segments on shows, and I love doing that if it's like a 3-day shoot. But I didn't hate the being on camera. Like, that wasn't the worst thing. You know, it wasn't like super, it's awkward, but if they're just following me doing stuff, totally fun.
Right.
But I felt like the time management and the project management of it was so bad that I'm like, and that has nothing to do with the network. That's just a production company. I'm like, I'm not going to do another show unless I own the production company. And so I get tempted all the time because the people that reach out are super nice.
Right.
But I've also done enough to know that like it's just different. I think being like a big family, an Idaho family, like my work ethic is on a different level, and the people I know's work ethic is on a different level than the production companies. Like, you know, you need to be there at 7:00 and then call me at 8:30 and saying, we're at Starbucks. Do you want something? I'm like, what do you mean you're at Starbucks? That's 30 minutes away.
Right.
You told me to be here at 7. Like, I'm ready to go. So I think that I could project manage it. I don't know anything about filming and that sort of stuff, but like storyline and project management of it, I think I can do a much better job because they're used to huge budgets and huge productions. And I'm like, oh, for that, you know, $40,000, I could have made that go way further.
Yeah, you know? And that's not what you're about. That's your whole principle, the core of your, at least from our conversation, the core of who you are isn't about that. It's about making do with smaller budgets and being more creative. That's why I think if you got like a really talented, I mean, this is me giving you advice completely unsolicited after talking to you for 60 minutes, but I think if you got like the right crew, the right group of people, like really clever, unique, kind of people that do that kind of stuff, and you had creative control and you could run it on a shoestring budget, you could put together something awesome. I mean, I love even the small stuff I've been able to find online, that 20 minutes you did on like how to build a hobbit hole. I think people would eat that up.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that maybe TV gets wrong a lot is to think we constantly tell everybody that this generation or people now don't have attention spans, but then you look at those videos that have millions. I think that hobbit hole one is like 8 million or 9 million views. It's boring. I mean, like, it's not boring. It's slow. It's not action packed. It's not high production. It's just information,
Right.
And it's got tons of views. It's not like, hey, I'm Kristie, I'm gonna do, like, it's not crazy. Like, people want information, and even podcasts. Like, we say that we have a short attention span, but now people are listening to 3-hour podcasts.
Exactly.
Like, that's the opposite of a short attention span. So when you're, I wanted to create something that did show people how to do things, or like how to deconstruct some, to give those ideas, not because I think people are going to build hobbit holes or tree houses or whatever, but that you could take that into your own home and build a secret door or whatever. But I don't want to. It's a ton of work to create a show, and I don't want to just create an hour to kill that somebody's going to have on as background noise. If I'm going to do that, I need it to be like something where people are actually going to learn something and attempt to do something, like feel empowered enough to do something on their own. So that's the only benefit I can see. And we had the production company and I, like, they couldn't comprehend that. They're like, well, once the show takes air, like, you won't have to do anything. And I'm like, that's
not what I want. Yeah.
That sounds like a nightmare, and they kept going back. I just don't think that they could comprehend that, like, it's not a desire to be famous. It's a desire to teach people another way of looking at things. And that was just something that I couldn't communicate to them. So yeah, I think doing it on my own, so I could try to do something with the potato, but it's like the financing, all of that,
right?
Not knowing where it ends up, getting people that are that do know what they're doing is tough. And I really, the only like hope, I would not have any hope except for the Zillow folks. They are excellent. And
yeah, so the Zillow video has been viewed a bajillion times. And did they just come to you out of nowhere?
Yeah. And that was one of them, like, that I wasn't building. I get lots of fun things, and I'm so glad that you followed up with me, because sometimes I'm just in the middle of something and I can't do anything because I'm like so laser focused. And then sometimes something hits me at the right time when I'm like, oh, I have 2 free days, let's do it.
Right.
And but Zillow, I think because it's a corporation instead of a production company, like, they were so good at it, so efficient, like, I mean, just excellent. And their product, the result was really good.
Awesome.
So yeah, that gives me hope that it can be done on like a small crew and like just using your time wisely. They give me hope.
Like, I think that example with HGTV and Mr. T is so perfect, because I think like that's the old style model that I think is totally going away, which is like, let's, what we can do? Let's throw Mr. T at it and let's like grab it. And it's like, what are you talking about? I just want to showcase how I build these small homes. And what, like, they're running off a model that has to have a commercial every 7 minutes, so you have to build up to some drama, whether it's real or not, and then a resolution. And you're like, that's not how storytelling works anymore. We sit down, we have a 3-hour conversation or an hour and a half conversation, and people listen to the whole thing. That's what people want now.
Yeah, they wanted to know, like, what are going to be the problems with the build. And I'm like, well, if I knew what the problems were, I would definitely avoid them. I'm like, but I can guarantee there'll be problems because there never isn't, So, like, yeah, I can't tell you which day there's going to be something horrible happen, but I guarantee it will happen. So that's hard, but they are trying to create something, that's why some things work for it and some things don't, because and before, like early days HGTV, like you watched and you learned how to reupholster an ottoman. Like
Right.
you learned how to do something every time. And now I feel like everything is just, everybody comes in and flips, and then there's 10 minutes of styling afterwards. And it's like, well, yeah, I could do that if I had $400,000 to pay a crew to come in and do this.
Right.
But
again, like get somebody else that's not who you are. Like if that's your deal, why are you going to Kristie? That's not Kristie's thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Just get somebody else to do it.
Yeah, like the tiny house thing, is awesome, and it has inspired lots of people, but it also, like, they want it to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, how do you do that in a tiny house? We have more extreme things, and the movement of the tiny house originally was to simplify, but now you've taken that idea of simplifying, you've added
it a whole lot more complicated.
Yeah, a deck that folds out to 600 square feet. And it's like, well, that was
deck.
opposite of what we were going for, So, yeah, I think, again, like what we were saying earlier, is I can't be anybody else. So it's easy for me to turn down a lot of things because I'm like, oh, like I already have such an incredible life where I get to do what I want.
Right.
So, yeah, doing a show and devoting 6 months of my life, and then maybe it gets picked up, and then I have to do this for the next year or two,
right.
That's not fun. And one good one that I actually thought the idea was good, but it just wasn't for me because I have the builds that I already want to do was, have you heard of She Sheds?
No.
It's like the women version of a man cave, but
okay.
It's like a detached shed in the yard, and they'll make it like a whatever you're into, a calligraphy studio or a yoga studio or whatever.
Okay.
But the whole idea with the man cave was that the woman got to decorate the whole house, so they got their little section. So the She Shed, again, I'm like such a minimalist that it doesn't, I think they're super cute and I think that's fun, but it doesn't really fit with my life because I'm not about like adding more and more. I'm about you don't need more and more.
Right.
But I think it was a really cute concept and everything. And so I was telling her, well, I think that you have a really good idea. I'm just not the person.
The person, right.
And then she was telling me, well, no, you are the person. And then like flattering me. And I'm like, well, that's really nice of you. And she goes, I am not nice. And I'm like, okay. Well, like, how would you think that I'd want to work with somebody that's not
perfect?
Nice?
Sold.
I don't know.
I'm on board. That's what I was waiting to hear.
I'm like, okay, I guess this conversation's over. I don't know. Like, so bizarre, but it's a different world. We'll see if
so
I
you get to run it. I'm glad, number one, I'm glad to hear that a lot of people are reaching out to you because you're getting, I think, the attention you deserve. And then number two, I'm glad to hear your response to that attention because when something does come by and I see blah, blah, blah show with Kristie Wolfe, I know it's going to be good. I know it's not just going to be like, although I would have liked to see the Mr. T show. I'm not gonna won't say that.
I don't think that one went.
Like
I don't
that
know.
is again I go back. It's like the perfect example of like Hollywood corporate whatever. Just like
this what we got. Great. Yeah.
Mr. T's gonna burst out of the potato, and then afterwards like.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is like I would never destroy a house like when they take a sledgehammer to a whole kitchen. That's fine. It's just like the wrong color for them. I'm like, donate that to Habitat. Like it hurts my heart.
You're
like,
just following behind Mr. T, picking up scraps and repurposing them. Mr. T. Mr. T is not a spring chicken. The guy's got to be like 75 years old.
He was probably 73 when I was approached.
You're gonna like have Mr. T throw out his back as he's pounding some countertop.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So, I mean, there's a lot of conflicts with it, but maybe I can do something that would be able to actually teach, but I don't know. It's also a lot of work. When I look at bloggers that have documented their process so well, I mean, like, kudos to them. I find it so impressive. There's a tiny house couple that they like time-lapse their whole thing. And I'm like, that is as impressive as the actual build.
Right.
Because holy cow, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that.
Man, so cool. I love everything that you're doing. I find it incredibly inspiring. Well, it
was fun chatting with you. I'm glad that you nailed me down.
So cool.
That worked.
So cool. I thank you so much for all of your creations. I can't wait to see what you come up with next. I am going to spend a night in that hobbit hole.
Yeah.
So I'll look for some of the cancellations and stuff, but we'll have to
Cool.
plan a retreat to
Yeah.
the Hobbit Inn. Very cool. So there you have it. Yeah, I think, as I said before, I was kind of poking fun at the whole Mr. T idea, but I think we, as humanity, are at a bit of a loss for not having seen that. I would have loved to see Pity the Tool by an aging geriatric Mr. T, accompanied by Kristie. So, at any rate, so awesome. I love the fact that there are people out in the world like Kristie Wolfe that kind of goes for broke and does really cool projects and creates things even that go against maybe conventional wisdom, but then they're wildly successful, right? Not just from a creative standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. What a cool thing! What a cool thing to show the world that you can kind of carve out a space in these niche markets, and you can follow sometimes the crazy ideas in your head, and you can create things that are brilliant and things that are fun, and that we don't have to just do things that are for the resale value or for, follow conventional wisdom, which is just what I'm all about these days. So I love talking to people like Kristie and seeing what they produce, and I'm inspired by what they create. And even though A Hobbit Hole isn't a book, there's a lot of similarities in, and I think kind of what she's doing, and what I want to be able to do. And hopefully there's a lot more similarities, if that makes any sense, when I kind of dive in and try to create my own Hobbit Hole. As I said, I am not giving up on that dream. It's somewhere. It's going to happen. So anyway, next week I talk to the Jergies. The Jergies, you can find them on YouTube. They have several 100,000 subscribers. Awesome, very adventurous couple. They now have a child, and they travel all over the place. Number one, kind of doing like nice pranks on each other, which is kind of how I think they got started. But they travel all over the world doing these adventures. They're trying to hit, I think, every 50 states right now, and they hide treasures wherever they go. And they kind of post the coordinates or clues on how to get them online, and people go find their treasures. So they're doing these adventures with people. Just an awesome idea. That's like one of those things like, I want to have a secret door in my basement. I want to have a secret door in my house because it's cool. Finding buried treasure is another one of those things that as a kid, it's like, is there anything cooler than finding buried treasure? My daughter is she's way into these books that cover all the different kind of gemstones. So she brings them home from the library. So we've gone, diamonds and rubies and amethysts and opals and turquoise and all this stuff. And she turned to me today, she's like, Dad, so is there like a place that has these amethysts in the States? Like, can we go find them and dig them up? Like, where so, and I remember that same kind of concept. In fact, I remember one year for Christmas, I was probably by her age, I asked for diamonds. So my parents gave me this, it looked like a medicine, like a pill jar, oddly enough, of fake diamonds. And they were sweet. It was like the coolest present ever. Little kid flipping shiny diamonds, do all sorts of stuff. Anyway, yeah, buried treasure. What a cool idea. Not just to find it, but to, to bury it yourself, and then to give people clues and have to get again, that just makes life more awesome. I love talking to people who make life more awesome. So I can't wait to talk to them, kind of see what their story is, what they're all about, kind of what inspired their way of life, and see how we can be a little bit more like them, inspire the world to create more awesomeness. All right. Well, until then, please, the call will always be issued to all nerds of all variety. Please respond to that call. Ciao, ciao. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Calling All Nerds. To find out more about Mike, his novels, blog posts, videos, and everything else interesting, go to mike-thayer.com.